Hey everybody! And you know when you go to Disneyland and you pass by Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, I think the majority of you will be thinking, what the heck does that Toad's Wild Ride have to do with Disney?
Disney have been around for a while, haven't they? And it's hard to think that they've been in business for 100 years now. Yet it hasn't been without their bumps along the road. After the smash hit that was Snow White, that popularized the feature-length animated film, Disney would follow up with Pinocchio and Fantasia. But due to the Second World War cutting off European markets, they weren't quite the success stories box office-wise, and alongside Fantasia's notoriously high production values at the time, led to the infamous Disney animator strike of 1941, making plenty of animators leave Disney for other animation studios, and would lose even more when America entered the war. You also gotta bear in mind that Dumbo and Bambi were also developed around the same time, and with everything going on around then, it was a miracle seeing these two get made, let alone held in such high regard today. And being strapped for staff and budget to continue making feature-length films, then came a goodwill tour of Latin America to save the day. Yeah, but what does any of that have to do with Mr. Toad's Wild Ride? Ah yes, the Disney wartime package film era. Feature lengths that aren't exactly feature length. These were low budget films that bridged together otherwise random shorts. For its time, made a lot of sense for a struggling Disney to put out multiple movies like this while saving money. But why does nobody talk about them? When general discussions bring up the Disney animated canon, everybody always seems to say, first Bambi came out, then Cinderella. Ellis Marks skipped these films from ranking every Disney and Pixar movie, and they mostly don't have Blu-ray releases, at least here in the UK.
Now here, I want to check out all 6 of these films to see if they're worth checking out or not, and find out why no one talks about these films. Now let's begin with Saludos Amigos.
The first film of the lot, and here's a bit of backstory. Around World War II, several Latin American governments had close ties to Nazi Germany, and to prevent those ties, the United States Department of State, try saying that fast 5 times, issued a goodwill tour South America for Disney, given their popularity over there, as part of the good neighbor policy, leading to this film being made, and is so far the shortest film of the animated canon at 42 minutes. The film itself goes through multiple aspects of South America, through Disney artists getting inspired by local culture stroke scenery, and different animated segments sprinkled throughout. Whether Donald Duck visiting Lake Titicaca, an anthropomorphic airplane called Pedro, Goofy as a cowboy, and we get introduced to a new character called Jose Carioca, who introduces Donald to the samba and tours around South America, even though Donald was already in South America. The film had some good moments, and was interesting seeing South American culture from the 1940s preserved here, but it wouldn't stop there. The next movie was The Three Caballeros, another film as part of the good neighbor policy. Just like the last film, we take a crash course around South America, and also Mexico this time around. Here, Donald is celebrating his birthday, since it was his 10th anniversary when the film originally came out. And we have Jose and newcomer Panchito taking Donald all over the place, as we go through many segments from a penguin migrating to warmer climates, flying donkeys, the Caballeros party, and exploring the continent, whilst Donald tries to score with the local women. That's what he does throughout the whole film. I'm not kidding. And for no reason, one scene cuts to Mexican Christmas traditions. You know how there are those debates on whether Gremlins and Die Hard are Christmas movies or not? Where does the Three Caballeros fit in there? But it doesn't matter because there's a more chaotic climax at the end of Evangelion's Third Impact. Calm down, movie! Aside that, it was a delight to watch, and felt like a smooth viewing experience despite being a package film. And I'm not alone in liking this movie, as this was the most notable film of this era with the biggest legacy. With occasional cameos from Jose and Panchito in Disney shows and movies, a Disney World ride, and TV show a while back. With their popularity, I'm surprised the Caballeros aren't in Kingdom Hearts yet. And between the two films, I'd say Caballeros was better because you got more exposure of South America, and its more cohesive structure feeling more like an actual movie. But in conclusion, both are fun to watch. I just would have relied on them on learning South American culture, even more so now that we have Encanto. Next up is Make My Music, the only film of the animated canon to not be on Disney Plus for some reason. Yet these are. Like, how else did you think I saw these movies? I'm no parrot. I put the disc in, then suddenly get reminded that Disney made a Madagascar ripoff.
And we're off to a great start.
Unlike the previous two films, Make Mine Music is more like a visual concert akin to Fantasia. The first segment, The Martins and the Coys, is pretty interesting, as this is only available in the UK and Japanese releases of the film and nowhere else, possibly due to its gun violence. The segment is pretty decent, starting with both families hating each other so much they died. Yet the surviving members ironically fall in love, yet hate each other at the same time with a good song thrown in throughout. Blue Bayou, another interesting one, as this was originally a cut sequence from Fantasia due to its already long runtime, with Claire de Lune playing. It was adjusted to be its own short, and eventually readjusted here, but the original version has surfaced. The song here is fine and animated well, yet Claire de Lune complements the animation much better. All the cats join in, a really catchy song with neat animation, best one so far. Without You is a perfectly fine lost love ballad, but wish it had more stuff going on.
Do something!
Casey at the Bat's another great segment, with a lot of Looney Tunes energy thrown in, two silhouettes as surprisingly fluid rotoscope animation for its time, and beneficial as one looking into the technique. The history of rotoscoping coming later this year. Peter and the Wolf, a charming story which adapted the original musical composition into animation pretty well. After You Gone was well animated with a neat tune despite not really having a direction story-wise. Johnny Fedora and Alice Bluebonnet was a solid love story between two hats of all things. And despite Johnny Fedora sounding like a lame Indiana Jones knockoff, and the segment throwing me off by the fact that hats could impregnate each other, it's pretty neat overall with another good accompanying song. And last but definitely not least, The Whale Who Wanted to Sing at the Met, which has a whale that can perform opera. When initially looking at the DVD cover, I honestly thought this looked like a weird chicken thing, but no, that's the whale. Anyhow, an impresario goes out to sea thinking that some opera singers have been swallowed by him like the story of Jonah to save them. We cut to a montage of the whale's fantasy of his career at the Met, kind of like King Kong. But reality hits as the whale's been harpooned for the heart and he's to blame. Gee, it gives opera a bad name. But don't worry kids, cause he's still singing up in heaven! In conclusion, the film has a good amount of hits like All the Cats Join In, Casey at the Bat, and The Whale. Although some segments are weaker than others, Make Mine Music is pretty good and well animated, and I think Jello Apocalypse puts it best. It's Fantasia with lyrics. Fun and fancy-free, the next film in the lot, and if you're gonna forget the name of this film, don't worry cause the opening song has those 4 words and they're just as frequent as a swear word in a Quentin Tarantino movie. We begin with Jiminy Cricket magically breaking into a house, and then enters a girl's bedroom, which takes us to our first segment, Bongo. The segment blows. It has a circus bear named Bongo escaping from his circus life to live in the wild, struggles to do so, but finds love in this overly long sequence. Like we get it, they love each other. But oh no, a bigger bear tries to get the girl, and in response, she slaps Bongo to indicate their love.
I didn't know they got Amber Heard in this movie.
But she slaps the big bear by mistake and they get together, making Bongo feel defeated. And we get into a musical number where slapping each other indicates affection.
Oh, one of these days, bang, zoom! Straight to the moon.
But then Bongo challenges the big bear and unsurprisingly wins with the big baddie possibly dead and Bongo and the girl live happily ever after. Have you noticed that this is Bambi's second half but worse? The problem with this segment was with its predictability, and how painfully dragged out it was. Like it would be fine if it were 10 minutes, but no, it's 40.
And we haven't even got to the latter half of the film. I can't friggin' wait.
We cut back to Jiminy Cricket, where he goes next door to see a girl attend a party with Hector Bergen with his ventriloquist dummies. And the dummies are insufferable! Can you believe that they're worse? The Pauly Shore Pinocchio.
Father, when can I leave to be on my own? I've got the whole world to see.
Anyhow, we then cut to Jack and the Beanstalk with Mickey, Donald, and Goofy. It's a solid take on the story, and actually the last time Walt Disney performed Mickey Mouse. The background design is surprisingly great, with the famine-struck scenes being really effective, and the giant isn't too bad overall. In fact, he would make an appearance as the Ghost of Christmas Present in Mickey's Christmas Carol 36 years later.
But there is one tiny little downside. The party guests and dummies talk about the whole thing!
Though the short itself is perfectly harmless and nothing to go crazy over, the banter throughout it kills the immersion. This is no Mystery Science Theater 3000, making it hard to focus on the short itself, and you just want the film to continue, yet the banter get in the way of the story and The last scene with the giant was pretty funny though.
So fun and fancy-free wasn't very fun. The biggest problem of the film was definitely the editing of it all, and the choices of Bongo and Mickey and the Beanstalk are jarring and some of the most random and out of nowhere combinations I ever saw. And I ship a deer and cat for no reason. But the segments were not great, would have been much better suited as their own standalone individual shorts, which was funnily enough how Disney re-released most of these films of this era initially on TV and VHS. So in short, the editing is awfully disjointed, the Bongo segment felt longer than the Godfather trilogy, and I want to throw those dummies into a wood chipper. Gee whiz, would you look at the time!
Melody Time, the sequel to Make My Music no one asked for, but by God were we getting anyway! Just like that film, Melody Time is more like a visual concert with multiple shorts. The first segment has young lovers on a 19th century winter day playing on the ice. It's a decent start to the film all things considered, with some co-starring wabbits thrown in for good measure. Bumble Boogie, a swing jazz rendition of Flight of the Bumblebees, accompanied by good animation, and is probably the best take of the piece. That's a Tetris 99. The Legend of Johnny Appleseed, a personal highlight for its neat musical number, even though I could beat Johnny in a fight. Little Toot, which has a mischievous tugboat named Little Toot who wants to be like his father, Big Toot, but gets into all kinds of trouble, and at one point causes so much collateral damage he might as well be an Avenger. This was a Little Toot's fault. He then gets cancelled and saves a ship stuck in between rocks with all his strength and might. That is physically impossible given his size, as he would likely be torn apart with his remains scattered at sea. Oh well, at least he became a man, I guess. Trees, a musical rendition of the 1913 poem Trees. It's pretty to look at, I'll give them that. Blame It on the Samba, a segment with Donald and Jose, and I don't know. Though the song is neat, it feels out of place in this film, and would have fitted Three Caballeros and Saludos Amigos much better. I guess it's here just to put Donald on the DVD cover, cause God forbid Little Toot be on it. And finally, Pecos Bill, a solid take on the Texan folklore hero, yet the live-action opener and closer felt unnecessary. Or you could either take the live-action out, or make the segment its own short film. Beside that, Melody Time was a decent romp with plenty of memorable segments, but I personally think Make My Music has a slight advantage because its segments were more memorable, and I spent student loans on it. Last but definitely not least, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Adaptations of The Winds and the Willows and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Throughout the film, both segments have transitions taking place in a library, discussing general British/American literature and impact these particular stories have. Now I like these transitions, as unlike Fun and Fancy Free, they get to the point, never outstay their welcome, and makes the film flow seamlessly. We start with Wind in the Willows, faithfully following the story of Mr. Toad's obsessions with vehicles and wanting a motor car so much he accidentally committed theft for it. Rat, Mole, Badger, Toad, and especially the horse are all fun characters and have their own unique charm to them, accompanied by strong narration from Basil Rathbone throughout the story. The middle section, whilst nothing to brag over, at least had a good amount of chuckles, despite Toad's ecstatic energy during his escape from prison. But the highlights is easily no doubt the climax in Toad Hall against the Weasels, with a lot of fun and welcome slapstick thrown in during a time of Golden Age Looney Tunes. A strong segment all things considered, and once again would inspire rides in Disneyland, and just like the Giant and Mickey and the Beanstalk, the short's characters snuck their way into Mickey's Christmas Carol. Now for the last segment of this era, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. In contrast to Basil Rathbone narrating Wind in the Willows, Sleepy Hollow is narrated and sang by Bing Crosby. We follow Ichabod stumbling into a quiet Sleepy Hollow working as a schoolmaster, whilst Ron Bones pulls backfiring pranks on him and things really heat up when Katrina comes to town. Throughout this sequence, we have Ichabod wooing Katrina, whilst Braun tries to sabotage things, yet ultimately backfiring in a fun manner. But this is perfectly shown off at the Halloween party with another entertaining sequence. Afterwards, we have Braun telling the party guests about the legend of the Headless Horseman in song to terrify Ichabod, who gets intimidated by a salt shaker. And I have to say, it's one of the most underrated Disney songs if you ask me. And finally, we reach the climax with Ichabod on his horse heading back home, yet encountering the Headless Horseman, transitioning into an exciting chase sequence that did have me on the edge of my seat at one point. But unfortunately for Ichabod, reaches a dead end with a jack-o'-lantern thrown towards him. Whilst Braun gets Katrina and has been theorized Ichabod was still alive and married a wealthy widow, let's be honest, the horseman killed Ichabod. Another strong segment with a fantastic second half, making 2 great segments in one neat film, and may now be in my top 25 Disney movies and favorite takes on these stories as a result. My uni lecturers are gonna crucify me.
And that was the Disney wartime package film era that no one talks about. But when looking back, I can kinda see as to why that's the case. They weren't really movies, rather compilations of short films, with all of them being relatively hit or miss. And out of all 6 films, I can only really recommend one. But they did one job, and one job that they did best. Keep Disney afloat during a difficult time for producing animation. But hey, if it weren't for them, Disney wouldn't be celebrating their 100-year anniversary, that's for sure. And afterwards, Disney were stronger than ever with a successful line of new films, before nearly going bankrupt because of being too ambitious for one of them, and then finding a new cost-effective means of animation production, leading to making more films, and then bombing again because one of their films was rated PG at a time that rating actually meant something, before releasing their most successful string of films yet, and then dying at the box office during the 2000s, and then having another successful line of films, just before bombing at the box office again. I swear the studio is held together by Blue Tech. And if I had to rank all 6 films from worst to best, it would be Fun and Fancy Free, Novelty Time, Saludos Amigos, Make My Music, The Three Caballeros, and The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Have you seen any of these films? And if you did, what do you think of them? Let me know down below, and with that, thanks for watching.